Hello, this is Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. In today's live Q&A session, we're joined from one of the best catalog troubleshooting experts in the world, none other than Lesley Hensell of Riverbend Consulting. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Stephen. Wow, that's some kind of intro. I've got to live up to that one.
Well, I mean, I just see your posts all the time, and you're always talking about catalog troubleshooting problems. Every time I hear you speak, I'm like, yep, she knows what she's talking about. So really excited to talk to you today. We will be taking live questions from the audience. So as you guys participate, feel free to write your #1 catalog, brand registry, troubleshooting, suspension reinstatement, whatever. We're here to answer those today. Before we do that, so Lesley, give me a couple minutes here on your origin, how you got involved in Amazon, and what Riverbend's all about.
I started selling on Amazon way back in 2010. So my big joke is that makes me a grandma on Amazon, even though that I'm
In
not
dog
I'm
years,
not
it
a
does,
grandma
yes.
in real life. I'm not yet, but I am on Amazon. So before that, I was a management consultant, like old school consulting with an accounting firm, management consulting. So as I sold on Amazon, met other people in the Amazon world, ran across people who were suspended, didn't understand the whole root cause plan of action thing Amazon was asking for to reinstate their account. I was able to use some of that old school management consulting to learn how to write Amazon appeals, combined what I knew from selling on Amazon for several years with my background and started getting people reinstated. And then a few years ago, I got my partner Joe Zalta's account reinstated. So that's how we met.
That's
He
how
was
you
a
met? You
client.
reinstated an account, you're like, hey, let's do business.
Yes, and he said, we've got to do this together. I'm the sales guy, you're the operations person. Let's put this together. And so we created Riverbend. We've been around now for 4.5 years.
Well, that's fantastic. So the #1 thing that you guys do at Riverbend is related to catalog troubleshooting, or what would you say is your #1 service?
So people usually come in the door because their account or their ASIN is suspended. That's usually the #1 thing that they call us for the first time. But then after that, we try and help them with whatever Amazon problems they may be having. So that can be things like inventory is stuck in transship for more than 30 days, which is the standard, right? So we got
Yep.
people who come and say, my inventory's been stuck for 90 days, or they've got reimbursement problems. So we do reimbursements, but then sometimes they might be doing them themselves or have someone else doing their reimbursements, but Amazon has turned down something that is obviously reimbursable, especially for inbound shipments. So we specialize in doing executive escalations to solve those kinds of issues where you're like, this is so unfair and wrong. Help me.
All right. So we set you up as an expert here. We'll start taking questions from the audience here momentarily. So start typing those questions in, guys. We got a couple in queue already. So Lesley, you said 2010, you've been an Amazon seller and expert. What's like the #1 thing that you've learned in all of this time? Is it that Amazon's passive income?
So Amazon is semi-passive income. I think it's a mistake to look at Amazon as passive income because you still have to work it. I think a lot of my clients who get into trouble, who get suspended, they view it too much as passive income. They think they can set it and forget it. You still, even if you outsource it, you've got to have someone on that account checking to see if you've got stranded inventory. Do you have suspended ASINs? Do you have things that put your inventory and your income at risk over time? And so if you see it as semi-passive instead of passive, I think you're a lot better off.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so we got a couple of questions from the audience we'll start on. So Matt says, any insight on Amazon Live and working with these influencers? I don't know if that's in your purview or not, but go ahead.
I do have an opinion.
Go ahead.
One thing people learn about me very quickly is I do have a lot of opinions about
It's not
Amazon.
hard to have an opinion. So go ahead.
So Amazon Live is a fascinating program that really hasn't taken off yet, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that it is the best use of your promotional dollars at this time. I have had clients who've tried it out and they have not seen much ROI at all. Now, if you have a product that is a prestige product, shall we say, it might be more worth your time, but you still, even on Amazon Live, have to be very careful about how they promote your product. If you're using that off the platform as well as on the platform, you just have to be careful Amazon doesn't perceive you as trying to manipulate anything.
What do you mean by manipulate?
So there are people who have been booted from Amazon Live because they asked for reviews as part of
Don't do
the
that. Never
as
ask for
part of
reviews
it.
anymore.
Yeah, and they were like, and you're going to love our product, and then you're going to give us a 5-star review, and you're like right there on the platform, and so they were disinvited from using that. So you still have to be careful. Just
That's a good
because
tip.
it's something you're paying for, it doesn't mean you can make the ask.
So yeah, do a live box demo, open it up, show them what we got. All right. Oso says, for some reason, my coupon is not showing on the search page above the price. I have an offer price on this ASIN and a coupon. Coupon troubleshooting. All right. What's your take? Where should he start?
The first thing I would do is go to seller support, which I know is really frustrating because a lot of times it doesn't work. But the first thing I would do,
answer my ticket.
I know. So what you're going to ask for, though, the key with seller support is to use their language, not yours.
Yep.
You've got to use their language. Steven knows this because he does this all day too, right? So you need to ask them to refresh your ASIN. If they refresh your ASIN, that essentially means it's like they're hitting reload. It's like when you have a web page that doesn't load and you hit refresh. So if you ask them to refresh the ASIN, it will fix it like 80% of the time.
Well, I like that tip. So I even wrote that one down. Use seller support language, refresh your ASIN. All right. That's a good one. All right. So let's go to the next one. So what's kind of going generic a little bit here with you. What are some of the most common account suspension types right now from what you've been seeing, Lesley?
Right now, it's all about linked accounts. So linked accounts is where Amazon thinks that you and your account are related to another account that's not allowed to sell on Amazon. So it could be for real an account you sold on 20 years ago when you were selling your textbooks in college and you didn't fulfill an order.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be that you got suspended for something serious like an authentic or counterfeit or Section 3, and then you opened a new account. Or it could be something completely innocent, a false positive. So you have a roommate from 5 years ago who now is living somewhere else and they opened an account, or that you have multiple accounts that are allowed because you're selling multiple brands on separate accounts. Either way, that is what they are suspending for and have been since about September, very aggressively.
Why do you think Amazon's making some initiative here from what you've seen?
So they changed the BSA, which the Business Solutions Agreement, which people refer to as terms of service. They changed the BSA for a couple of reasons. They said out loud, so before they'd said, well, you can sell on more than one account if you get our permission.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
Yeah, so then they changed it to say you can sell on more than one account if you have a valid business reason. And of course, you need to follow the common sense rules like separate bank accounts, never sell the same inventory. It's better if you're in different categories completely or different brands. So once they made that change,
floodgate opened up.
Oh, yeah. So then people started opening new accounts like crazy. So Amazon had to get a lot more aggressive about enforcing against this. Also, like every other rule, people read it the way they want to, which means, oh, well, I'm fine. I can sell the same product on 2 or 3 accounts. They don't go the level deeper. And you got to understand that Amazon doesn't enforce on that because they care. They enforce on that because the Federal Trade Commission cares. So there are some things that Amazon enforces because it all rolls downhill from a federal agency or some
We've
other.
seen a lot of that. Yeah, like over the last couple of years, the supplements category having to do all the COA documents. I mean, we've seen like kind of waves come and go. Like back in the day, it was hard to gate grocery or beauty, and then topicals, and yeah, it just seems like it keeps rotating around. Really weird stuff. All right, so Sarfraz coming in from LinkedIn. How do I select the right category? So you could talk
Good
about
question.
category changes too if you want.
Okay, so selecting the right category. If you're talking about what do I want to sell?
I think what he's actually talking about is, okay, I've got an item to sell. Which
Yeah.
category should I be in? What if I get it wrong? How do I change it? That's kind of the sense I'm getting.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay. So the easiest way that I've found to choose is you probably know who your competitors are. You search for your keywords, you look at products that are similar to yours, and you're going to find what the sub category is for your product and put it in that product. Now, in that category. Now, if you need to change your category, a lot of times you do end up having to reach out to the category manager or the catalog team. The catalog team is everybody's least favorite to reach out to because sometimes they are taking tickets and sometimes they are not. So if you are in a category and you figure out that it was the wrong category, you need to reach out to seller support and say, I need this escalated to the catalog team. I need this moved to this category. This is why.
And then for those that don't know, you can go into brand registry right here under support, listing issue, change your products category. You can submit a request right here. And Lesley, let me know what your thoughts are on kind of this ticketing methodology. What I like to do is I like to file the ticket, and then I'll file a reply to the ticket when I get the inevitable auto decline. And then after I get a human response from my human response to their auto decline and they still reject it, I'll then place a phone call. How do you feel about that methodology?
So if the phone call works, great. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I avoid the phone calls. I'm just saying, like, here's my like tier tree of triage, right? Like
Mhm.
ticket response, that doesn't work. Phone call, like that's like I try and avoid talking to seller support because it's almost a waste of time. But
Well, and I agree with you. When you do the ticket response, what a lot of times what they tell you is they make some suggestion that you've already done.
yes,
That's what I find that their response is usually what you need to do is this. And so when you do that response, I always bullet point starting out as we have bullet point done this, bullet point done this, bullet point done this. It is not working. We need you to bullet point this, and make it really, really short. You're more likely for them to actually do what you need if you explain to them that you already did the needful, right? Because
yes.
they just assume that you haven't unplugged it and plugged it back in. They
I,
assume that.
I like the way you're articulating this, and it sounds too simple to be good, right? But it actually is spot on, in my opinion, right? If you simplify a ticket and it's like the TLDR email strategy, right? Like if you're trying to email somebody, but then it's 5 paragraphs, what do? You're just like, yeah, you need to unplug it, right? Like, or hey, I've tried blue, I've tried green, I need you to do red for me. Boom,
Right.
it's pretty clear, right? All right,
Right.
let's go to Jake here. We got a message saying we are writing to inform you of your account's removal for our brand, from brand registry. No health issues, newer account, appeal rejected with no reason given. Jake, one of the first questions I have for you is the trademark still live? We've tried countless support tickets with no luck. Trademark is registered and our brand was enrolled in brand registry for a few months before this. Any ideas where we can go from here? So Jake, my first question for you is, have you looked at your trademark live on the USPTO? Did it get, did anybody, what's the phrase when somebody on the trademarks, contesting it, whatever that is.
Right. They're
Um,
making a claim that it's theirs.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Where you can't get it to go live, or has it been 6 months since the trademark was filed and the USPTO rejected it? If that's the case, then this makes perfect sense. Beyond that, it's very rare for me to hear about a brand registry being flat out just revoked. But Lesley, you've probably seen a few weird cases. What are you thinking?
We actually get this frequently, believe it or not, and
Okay.
it's something that you would think would not happen because you've done the things, right? You did all the things, you got the trademark, you used the lawyer, you got it all set up. What we've seen is that for some reason, Amazon will believe that you were abusive. And so one thing I'd love to know from Jake is, did Amazon say anything about you being abusive? And I'll tell you what abusive means in Amazon's eyes. First of all, a lot of these are false positives, and people never did anything abusive with their brand registry, but someone else somewhere on Amazon did something and it got attributed to you because you're the brand owner, which is so wrong. The second thing that happens is that people will file to get someone removed from their listing because of trademark or copyright or whatever intellectual property issue there is. If Amazon overturns that or overturns a certain percentage of those takedowns that you do, you will be considered abusive on the basis that people were able to get reinstated, and they will remove your brand registry. This is happening to some law firms and some of these agencies that say that they're going to manage that for you. They're getting called abusive. And in some cases, they were following the rules. I know a law firm that follows the rules to the letter. And just because someone overturned some of these, they got called abusive. So as far as appeal being rejected with no reason given, they don't give a reason when they reject the appeal. At this point, brand registry support used to be really useful. Now they're just as bad as everyone else, all the rest of seller support, unfortunately. So I would go to executive seller relations with this and then escalate from there, because it's the only way you're going to overcome it.
And for those of us that don't know what executive seller relations is, what is that?
Executive seller relations is a group inside of Amazon. Okay, Amazon has an escalation culture. This is a thing. I had never heard of an escalation culture until I started doing Amazon consulting. That means they actually welcome people coming to them and saying, you screwed us over and this is how. Your processes are terrible and this is why. They welcome that.
Is that
So there
how they
are
fix the system?
that, yes, instead of doing internal auditing and the kinds of quality control that you and I, Stephen, do every day with our teams, instead of that,
Crowdsource. Yes.
yes, it's what they're doing. I mean, they may as well have Mechanical Turk on it. So they so they welcome escalation. So you need to escalate to some executives inside of Amazon and tell them what the problem is. And there are people there who care. I know it feels like nobody cares, but there are people there who do care.
And what's the best way to do that? Is it send it to Jeff at Amazon still, or is there a better way these days?
So the Jeff at Amazon, people think that that email was deprecated because he's no longer, the day-to-day guy. Not true. You send it to Jeff at Executive Seller Relations, picks those up now.
So that's always kind of been my assumption, is that the Jeff at was always done by like an arbitrage team of escalators, and then they funnel it out to high level managers. I kind of look at it as kind of like a Hail Mary. And before people just randomly reach out, my best advice is go through the regular process first.
Always
Cite the case IDs, and then same concept: problem, did it right way, solution requested. Simple, short email, same way you'd write the ticket. And then it makes it really easy for them to say, yeah, we're in the wrong, we need to fix this.
If an executive or an executive team at Amazon looks at your problem, even if they find it a compelling argument, and then they ask someone to look and see what has been done, and you didn't file the cases and you didn't go about it the right way in the first place, they are going to either completely ignore you, or they might be kind enough to write you back and say, go through the right channels, and if that doesn't work, get back to me. But Jeff Ad is not a Hail Mary, believe it or not. It is very effective. For now,
yes.
That could change tomorrow, y'all.
All things have like a temporary time period that they work, right?
There used to be an email address for executive seller relations, and it's gone now. So, everything changes.
Yeah, it seems so. I create all these filters in my email address where and it seems like they created like another 15 Amazon emails in the last like 60 days. I don't know. Did you notice that? You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah. Rick is saying DMCA. I'm not really sure what he's getting at, but what are your thoughts on DMCA?
So, if your question is, do counter notices work? Yes, they do. So, file your counter notice with the Amazon team. That does solve it. Sometimes the solve is temporary, though, and you have to do it again. Be prepared that if this goes into a circular situation where it happens over and over again, that you may have to get an attorney involved.
So speaking of attorneys and legal stuff with patent stuff, so let's say that somebody,
Oh.
I typically don't deal with patent stuff, so maybe you don't either. But like if somebody gets their listing taken down because it infringes somebody else's patent and it's just a false claim, what do you typically recommend people do?
Man, patents are the toughest of all of the IP issues that come up on Amazon. And there's a reason that people file patent because they know this and they're being manipulative of the system. There are cases where they're actually concerned about their patent being violated, and then more power to you. File it, file it, file it. But it's really sad and manipulative if you choose that because you know Amazon is the least likely to take action on patent in favor of the person who received the infringement notice. So with patent, there are times that we will tackle patent infringement. There are times that the documents aren't in order. There are times that a lawyer was not involved. Also, sometimes we have a client that will go get an opinion letter from a lawyer and we can fight a patent claim that way. If it is a close call, though, you got to get an attorney. And if it's something that's really obvious, you might be able to escalate that inside of Amazon and solve the issue, maybe. But if it's a close call, there's always going to have to be dollars on an attorney.
That's the answer nobody wants to hear, but it's the right one.
Yeah.
Jeff says, can I request to have supplement products listed in 2 categories at the same time? And if I can, is it a bad idea?
So the bad idea part of it is that it can dilute your SEO over time. It can actually be problematic with your keywords. And there are a lot of technical reasons for this that Stephen, I apologize that I don't have all of the magic vocabulary around this to explain
That's
it
okay.
in a really
Just speak
great
real.
way.
Just speak real. It's okay.
So I just know that it will dilute the power of your keywords if you're splitting into 2 categories, and that can be problematic.
What?
Um,
Why do you say that though? Just curious.
so because you want all of the search to be driven into one page. And so the nodes, the way the nodes are at Amazon, it's almost like it's viewing it 2 ways. And a lot of times, if you actually want this to stick where you're in 2 categories, you have 2 different ASINs. And you cannot have 2 different ASINs for the same product.
So this is an interesting problem. I've never actually thought about this one before. My assumption is that keyword data is stored at a child ASIN level. But what you're hypothesizing here is if it's assuming it's the same ASIN for this hypothesis, if it's in 2 categories, that the keywords are actually being stored in 2 locations. And I've never even considered this. So that is a really interesting question. And we'll probably never find out the answer to this
Well,
because
and that
nobody at
it's
Amazon knows.
that there's this dilution because it's actually driving through different nodes.
One thing that does come to mind is that when you switch a category, sometimes you'll see keywords change in the rankings. And so
Mhm.
there's something there. All right. So Jeff, Lesley says 2 categories bad. That's what we're hearing today. All right, let's go to John Aspinall. What are some typical hot words in seller feedback that can be easily flagged and reported to Amazon for removal?
That is a great question because I think that, this is one of those things that people have been confused about when you can get seller feedback removed forever. And part of that is because Amazon has kind of futzed around with it and changed it over time. So anytime someone complains about the price, oh, that's an easy one.
That's an easy one.
Yes, if it is very clear that they're talking about the product itself, even if you're the brand owner, even if it's your product, this isn't a product review, this is seller feedback. So you can get it removed because they're complaining about the product. If FBA delivery is involved, anytime someone's complaining about it's late And a lot of times it's damaged. You can pin that on FBA. So it's not necessarily hot words as much as it's the theme of it. Can you pin it on FBA and make that argument? Are they complaining about price? Are they saying this supplement didn't work for me? Well, that's not your fault as the seller. That should be a product review.
So here's a couple of examples of some feedback that I got struck out on the last week. So this person wrote, no bundles of sage, box was full of pieces of sage and sticks, absolutely terrible. So what would that one be considered? Product review. Easy one to strike, got that one out. Here's another one. I received an empty envelope. I'd like my money back. Clearly FBA really messed something up if they shipped an envelope for starters. Haven't heard that one before. So that one was about the shipping, easy remove. I do recommend people, set up a feedback alert system. There's so many different softwares you can use for this. And then you can see, you want to keep your stars right at 4.9. Anything under 80%, and you're gonna see massive fall off of sales. So any other feedback tips, Lesley?
So be really careful that if it should be removed, don't fight it a second time. Be honest with yourself and say, okay, I may not like that feedback or think it's fair, but if you're going to pin it on someone, pin it on me, and don't fight it a second time. If you fight them a second time and you do it multiple times and they've been rejected for what Amazon considers valid reasons, they will warn you, and they can even suspend your account for that, which would be a really dumb reason to get suspended.
That would be a bad one. Yes. Jake says, thanks, Lesley. They said we were abusive, but we did nothing abusive. We were the only sellers of our brand as well. Trademark is active and live. Trademark was published for opposition on March 22nd. All right. So all of the common reasons we came up with are kind of ruled out here. What is Jake's next step?
Okay. Can I just say nailed it on the abusive? That's what
Somebody
they say.
Somewhere else on Amazon at some point did something, and we'll never find out what it is.
Right. Absolutely. So proving a negative is always really fun. The great thing about it happens on Amazon all the time.
As charged until you prove yourself innocent. Yes.
Right. And even if you're innocent, sometimes you have to admit you did something to get reinstated, even if you didn't do it. It's awesome. So the thing about brand registry
that's the U.S. court system in a nutshell right there.
Right. Amazon
makes that probation. Otherwise, you're going to jail.
Amazon makes the U.S. court system look gorgeous and amazing.
Wow, that's a statement.
It does. It's so bad. The great thing about brand registry, though, is there is a record there. If you can get someone to take the time to look, they can see if you were abusive or not. And if you didn't file anything on anyone, or if everything you filed was totally valid, it is all right there in the record. So right now, you need to bail on brand registry. They are not going to help you. And you need to send the Jeff at email for executive seller relations and explain to them in bullet points you were accused of being abusive, that you weren't. You need to quantify what you did if you did try and get any other products removed. If you had any, because you say you're the only sellers, I'm assuming you didn't. But if you did, and the only other thing really to investigate is, do you have any other brands, or has anyone else ever had access to your brand registry? Think about that. Think about if there's any other brands you're related to that they might be linking that to that were problematic. But if that's not the case, state that as well and say, look, we're the only ones who have access to our brand registry. It's our only brand registry. What are you doing? And that should solve it.
Jake, And Jake, one last tip. I don't think my tip's going to help you. I don't think this is what it is. But please go log into Canada's dropdown and see if you're suspended there. I have seen brand registry be impacted, the inability to open a new brand registered brand because Canada is suspended. So if that's the case, you found your answer. I don't think that's going to be the case in your description, but just throwing that out there. All right. So Oso says, great live. Thanks a lot. Please do more live videos on catalog. We have, 1,000 videos on my Amazon Guys YouTube channel, and pretty much I'd say 60% of them are on troubleshooting catalog problems. So yes, if you guys have requests on any particular types, I'm sure Lesley or I will be happy to produce some additional content on this. Jason Master Mateo, you met Jason and me at the Prosper show. He was the bald guy, a little bit balder than me. And he's got a question for you, and he's bringing our own client stuff to you here, Lesley. So we're working you today. Hi, I have a client that used to have a VC, Vendor Central account, with SNS product on products. VC account is long gone. We can't get SNS on Seller Central for a month now. Ticketing, and Amazon still says there's a VC contribution. What are your thoughts?
This is such a scam. Y'all know what the scam is. So I'll tell the
Vendor Central is the scam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But also for people who don't work in the Amazon dungeon all day, there are people on the vendor side who get really, really unhappy if you bail and you go over to Seller Central and your 3P because they no longer control you and your margins and all that good stuff. So they don't like that. And so they will use this vendor contributions excuse to abuse your listings however they want to, essentially. So here's what I would do. You've got to escalate this sucker. It needs to go to an executive. If you've got an executive in that category, it's even better. If you don't, you can go to someone who has some kind of profit and loss responsibility. And what you're going to tell them is you want subscribe and save. This creates monthly revenue for Amazon. And the vendor side is preventing this, and they're claiming it's because of vendor contributions. Vendor contributions have nothing to do with subscribe and save. This is some kind of a technical error that they're refusing to take the time to fix. Please fix it. The other thing you could do simultaneously is open a case with seller support and tell them that you have an engineering issue. Call this engineering. Say there's an engineering problem, which to you and me means a programming problem. They call it engineering. Say there's an engineering problem, and for some reason, the subscribe and save option isn't available, and it should be because it used to be, so help me out. And really, one of those two things should do it, assuming that there is enough inventory in the stock.
Well, I like the engineering tip here. We're going to give that a whirl, see how that goes. Might have to throw you a check in the mail on this one. All right. Jeff says, uploaded CPC certifications dozens of times, and they have all been rejected, even though we have 73 of almost the exact same products where they were accepted. Suggestions.
Oh, that's so frustrating. Okay, so the first
story of our lives.
I know. These are things Stephen and I do every day, all day. So frustrating. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to put a very critical eye on your own documents. Now, I know you're saying that they were all accepted before, but still, I want you to be hypercritical. And if you can't be hypercritical of them, find someone else to look at them for you in your own company or a friend, whatever. You need to make sure all the data matches and is somewhat recent. If they're super old, Amazon will sometimes reject them just for being old. You need to double check and make sure that they will accept wherever they came from. That can be a problem as well. Then
let's go back to the matching data. So you're talking name, company name, you're talking addresses, legal information, right? Like, so it matches the Seller Central account to the document. Anything else you throw in there?
And product descriptions too. Products are involved because sometimes product descriptions aren't clear. They're clear to you, but they may not be clear to the person reviewing the document. This happens for all kinds of testing, any kind of testing, any kind of back-end document that you might ever send to Amazon about a product or about your company. It's not always clear to them. So you need to double check and make sure that it actually makes sense and that everything actually matches.
Mohammed's given a tip over to Sarfraz. Classify your products using the Browse Tree Guides, BTG. So it's probably been 4 years since I've actually cracked one of those open sincerely. Most of the BTG's kind of been automated or filtered. It's a lot easier these days than I'd say 4 years ago. But yes, if you're really trying, I mean, I kind of like Lesley's idea of going for the competitor category tree, just copying that over. I think that's the easiest. But yeah, you can crack open. There's actual BTG guides you can download inside of Seller Central. SG says, hi, my US global listing is uneditable because the title is in conflict with the Italian side. This is across all marketplaces as soon as the catalog team started the listing transfer. What can I do? the deep breath, because I know I've been on this one too.
Well, and also, so y'all know how frustrating it is to deal with US seller support. And so then you think it's awful, and then you go to Canada and you find out Canada is like 10 times as bad, and you think Canada is really awful, and then you go over to the UK and you're like, Canada's not so bad, and it just progresses from there.
Then you get to Australia.
Oh my gosh, the closer you are geographically to the US, the better support you get, even if you're getting the overseas support, because they've been around longer, they have better training, and Amazon invested more in them up front and invests more in them now. Straight up. So anyway,
I've got the special offer to launch in Brazil, Lesley. Come launch your wine glasses in Brazil.
What problem could you have?
Attention.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my fallback. You think that you need to reach out to all these teams all over the place to fix stuff? You need someone in the US to fix this issue for you, and they can fix it across all the marketplaces. Now, getting them to do that is a challenge, but that is actually your best bet. If you try and go mess with the listing in every geographical marketplace, this is going to keep spinning you in circles. So I would go back to the US team. I would ask them to escalate you to captive in the US and try and get someone in captive to help you solve this.
But they tell me on the phone, Lesley, that the captive team doesn't exist and I can't transfer you.
So when that happens, I either recommend hanging up and calling again to get someone who actually acknowledges that the captive team exists, or sometimes I will do the same strategy we talked about before, where you send something to seller support, you restate what the problem is and what you've already done, and then you ask for an escalation to the captive team. And we've actually gotten calls back or emails back from someone at the captive team that they will send it to them by the email system. They're just not taking phone calls. So they'll tell you it doesn't exist because they don't take phone calls at certain times. Like they turn it on and off. And the catalog team does the same thing. The catalog team will be taking calls for 2 weeks, and they get overwhelmed. They don't take calls for 2 weeks. It's very frustrating.
And they don't exactly announce it either. It's like, oh, it's like hot and cold today. And then all of a sudden I see Slack blowing up with all of my catalog team members being like, oh, no more phone calls for the next 2 weeks. Here we go.
It's maddening, isn't it?
I mean, the lack of transparency for Amazon sellers, there's something to be said about it, isn't there? This is the most transparent company ever. I'm gonna give you an aneurysm from laughing. Becca says, I had all of my VC contributions deleted by an executive vendor specialist. Took a year. Ask for Patricia. She's like, she's the woman that can help.
Yeah, you know what, Becca? First of all, kudos to you, because it takes some real persuasion and persistence to actually get Amazon to delete the retail contributions. Seriously. You need like an award or a gold star or a cookie or something. And I'm not kidding. Yeah. I mean, super good for you. Yeah, we've gotten it done too, and it's not easy. It takes a ridiculous amount of time, and even harder is to try and get them to put a block on retail contributions, which we have gotten to happen exactly 2 times. Wow. Because vendor kept messing up. So these guys have this brand where they built these beautiful pages. I mean, gorgeous. And it used to be on the vendor side, and now it's all on 3P. And they built these beautiful pages and this gorgeous storefront. So their storefront was gorgeous, and vendor kept overwriting their beautiful pages with garbage, and their sales would go to nothing. So we got a block from an executive because we showed them the sales numbers. Here's how we were selling, and then you overwrote, and then here's how we were selling, and then you were just crazy.
It's the most ridiculous thing. I cannot wait for Vendor Central to die.
They're gonna be waiting a long time, man.
I don't know. I mean, I see signs. It's an inevitability though. Like they don't allow you to control your pricing. All of the features are no longer being integrated into Vendor Central, and the waves of people being forced out. It just seems like an inevitability thing. All right, another one from Jason. Amazon saying products are ineligible for NARF. So I actually know a lot about this one, so I may weigh in first. Yet there are multiple sellers drop shipping the products into Canada. Same ASIN captive team says there's nothing they can do. Concerned team, LOL, same. So the guy who made NARF, he took a job with Walmart, and they abandoned the program. And so that's why NARF sucks, right? Great concept, well thought out, terribly executed. So there's almost nothing you can do to fix NARF. And we've tried so much times. But all right, I know I'm taking a question from my own guy and answering it myself. So Lesley, what are your thoughts on NARF? Same experience?
Yes, first I just have to say that I love the LOL after concern team. That's why I was laughing, because concern team.
Yeah.
That just cracked me up. Yeah, so totally agree. Getting Canada, did I mention how bad it is trying to fix problems in Canada?
Really?
Yeah, so I would have to agree that this is not a winning strategy for the long term, and you're going to be beating your head against a wall.
Seems like Amazon launches 10 products or opportunities, and for every 10 they launch, one is actually worth touching. Sometimes, if that, maybe 1 out of 20, somewhere in that range. Yes. All right. I'm going to get the laughing award from Lesley today. David says, is it possible to combine two ASINs into variations without creating another unsellable ASIN to be in the parent? And what is the best way to go about this one? I might have to read this one twice. Is it possible to combine two ASINs into variation without creating another unsellable ASIN to be in the parent? I actually do not understand this question, David. So I'm hoping, Lesley, you got a better one than I do. Any take?
So you always have to have a parent ASIN anytime that you have variations. The parent ASIN a lot of times is not a sellable ASIN because everything will fall under the variation. What you need to be really careful about, though, to me, anytime someone says, can I combine two ASINs? My big red flag is, should you? So the first thing to think about isn't, am I going to increase my bestseller rank? Is one of my products not moving, so I'm going to pair it up with something that is moving? The first thing to think about is, should I be combining these? Because your only variations are supposed to be on factors that you can easily find within the little variation creation tool, which is color, size, quantity, sometimes flavor or scent, and that's it. You can't just put things together because you really want to make one move or because they're kind of related. So I know you didn't ask that question, but I have to throw that out there because Amazon is suspending accounts for variation abuse. Just know that that is a real thing.
I've seen it once, and I've rebuilt many parentages that Amazon told me I couldn't have, and have not had a problem kick back yet. But I always worry. So yeah, we have a bunch of variation types on the screen here. You guys can see them all. The other thing I would add to this is there's no such thing as an older brother or older sister when it comes to parentage. It is a parent and a child relationship. So it's not like you're assigning one child to be the parent. That's not how it works. It is creating a fictitious parent to house your spawn, your crotch goblins, if you will. And I've got 4 crotch goblins, so I can say this. And so your size variation. So if you got a kind of a medium and a small, and you're connecting them together, the parent does not have a size to it. You're just connecting the children together. So one of the most misunderstood topics, I think, in the catalog world is parentage. All right. We got a few in the queue here. Sean says, in the USA, if you have a new brand, you use the same Seller Central account as your other brand. No wrong answer to this one. What's your take?
So that is the answer right there that you just got. There is no wrong answer. So it really depends on how you want to run your business. Are these brands something that would sell in a combination. Let's say if you were to someday want to sell this account off to an aggregator, heck of a lot easier if they're in separate accounts. If you think, oh, this one might sell sooner and this one might sell later, are they super related and you plan to sell them forever and ever? You can have them in one account. Be very aware that having them in separate accounts doesn't necessarily protect you. People think, oh, I need everything in a separate account because then if one gets suspended, the other one won't. It doesn't really work that way. If they section through you for one, they'll section through you for all of them and take them all down. So, there's a little bit of protection if you got one brand suspended for, say, condition or inauthentic issues. The other one's probably going to stay live. So that's a good reason to keep them separate. Personally, just from what I've seen with clients in the whole acquisition world right now, I would probably have them separate because then you have two assets and you might want to grow one longer if you plan to divest at some point in time.
Great answer. Only thing I'll add to that is I prefer build to hold, and I'm never selling my stuff. So I like one big account just for ease of use. But accurate, if you want to sell something off, you got to separate them out. Becca says, yes, David, I'd love to know this too. I think we answered that one. Adel says, my original GS1 barcodes have expired for 4 of my SKUs. Should I get new ones, create new ASINs, and get the reviews merged? Is it worth it? What are your thoughts?
Oh, this is a challenge question here. Okay, so the good news is, and everyone needs to know this, because once upon a time, if someone said GS1, everyone would freak out because it was so expensive. The prices for GS1 have improved for people who only need a few barcodes. It is not as bad as it used to be, where you thought you had to make an investment of thousands of dollars to be GS1 compliant. If you've just got a few SKUs, it's going to be cheaper than you thought, number one. So merging could be problematic, though, if you are changing to a different UPC. That is my concern here, Stephen. Would you have the same worry that I do?
I would not merge products these days. Merging one child into a second child, not to be confused with parentage, but actual merging, typically not something we do very often these days. Unless somebody else, like another seller, created the duplicate, and I just want to maintain the 5 reviews on that listing, I might merge that. But on my own listings, honestly, Adel, I would probably leave it alone until Amazon caused an inquiry or had a red flag. I would be reactive on this. With most Amazon rule policy updates, being reactive is generally what I choose to do. And there was a moment in time, I'd say last June, where I was like, I tell people to be reactive, but on GS1 may want to be proactive because I started to see some European suspensions. And listings just being taken down. But in the US, I just haven't seen it. So I just don't think the risk is big enough in the US now. I would still be reactive. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, we haven't seen. A couple of years ago, Amazon got aggressive on some GS1 issues. And right now, they're just not.
Yeah, they backed off.
I think they're much more concerned about GS1 for new products, if you're launching something brand new. But
Yes.
for something that's been sitting out there a while, frankly, I think they don't want the mess in the catalog and a whole bunch of duplicate ASINs, which is what this would create over time.
Yeah, they did not make a process for updating UPC codes easy. In fact,
But they don't allow it.
Well.
I mean, you can get away with it, but they don't allow it. Like it's the rules. So changing brand name.
We had created 3 unique SOPs on how to change UPCs, and all 3 had worked at some point over the last 6 months. And now currently not any of them are working consistently. So yes, if anybody has the secret on changing UPC codes right now, I would like to be the first guy to get my hands on that, because it's been a huge pain in the butt. We had to stop offering it as a a la carte service. So full clients only on that one right now. Keep things moving. Sean says, create your new brand. I mean, do you use the same seller account? Does this increase the risk? Sean, as long as you have a unique bank account, credit card, and tax infrastructure, tax ID, all that good stuff, you're good to go. You can create a second account, no problem. Although moving target on the policies like we talked about earlier. SG says, I have a product search suppressed with another brand name merged onto my. Okay, so we're taking the level up here. We're leveling up the question. Merged onto my listing in the back end and detail page. Support asked me to delete and use a flat file to upload, which was unsuccessful. Thank you, Stephen and Lesley. So this one's hard to unpack, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going with what you said earlier. I need to read this again.
All right,
Search
so let's
suppress,
piecemeal
another
it.
brand
So
name.
search suppression almost always because of title or image. So
Right.
update the title or image. Okay.
But another brand name
But
merged in
another
the
brand name
backend
merged
entity
onto the
detail page.
listing in the back end. That sounds like a hijack listing issue. Do you have brand registry? If not, that's your problem. If you do have brand registry and a new brand is showing up, then yes, I would agree, delete flat file upload followed by brand registry tickets and then escalations from there. Brand name changes, those are hard, but they're not as hard as UPC changes. Difficult, but not terrible. But any thoughts on this one, Lesley?
So can I just say it's very frustrating to me when you do the flat file upload and it doesn't work, because that is
Yep.
supposed to be the magical
Yeah, it's
cure-all.
not.
It's not. You can also ask them to refresh the ASINs and then do the flat file upload. I know that sounds stupid. It has worked before. Somehow when you ask them to refresh the listings, refresh the ASIN, it cleans out some data that is
How
appended
fast
that's
does a
not supposed to
refresh
be.
go? Is it
It's
like
usually 24 hours.
24 hours? Okay.
So they do it, and then you know how sometimes things update overnight,
Yep.
right? Seattle time, it's that. So you're waiting that 24 hours.
So is the refresh ability at the lowest level on the catalog team? Can like anybody do a refresh, or do they have to go up a level?
Seller support frontline can do it.
Frontline, sweet. Okay,
Mhm.
good to know that. Becca says, "Can you put that text chat so I can tell my boss that?"
Oh, how brilliant she was and what a great job she did. Seriously, Becca, I'm so impressed because you must have really gotten after that and been so persistent. Persistence is the answer
It
so
is
many
great,
times on Amazon.
which is why I've been public about me saying the aggregators hired the wrong people, and 80% of the people being let go are going to switch industries. It's because grit and persistence is the number one core value of an Amazon seller, not MBA, Excel suit wizard, and
Mhm.
some of the other people that they hired. There's 20% they're letting go, I think, are probably going to keep at it. But for the by and the large, and the most part, they hired the wrong people.
It's a work till you fix it industry.
Correct. And that's what Amazon sellers have come to know and learn to understand. But outside of our world, nobody gets it.
Yeah.
All right, we got to do some speed demon questions here. Yes, they rebranded my products, and I got 973 ASINs deactivated because of IP issues. Had to reinstate it. Was a nightmare. Yeah, that's some grit right there, huh?
I want to buy Becca a drink.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even drink, and I want to buy her a drink. David, it's two ASINs that are two different colors, but it's possible to make one parent of the other without creating a new one. So yes, David, I now understand your question. You're not creating a new anything. You're just parenting together two child color variations. Yes, you're good to go there. Thanks for the clarity. Mohammed says, Stephen Pope, is that true? Can patent a keyword so that no one can run a campaign on it? No, you can't patent a keyword. You can trademark a keyword, but patenting a design in many, many different ways. I'm not the patent guy, though, and Lesley's right. Need a lawyer on that one.
And for ads, you can use, so in the back end of your listing with keywords, there you can't use other people's trademark terms and brand names, but in ads, it is much more flexible. You can.
Yes, I've never seen a problem with using it in ads. You can even get away with things like CBD in ads, but you can't do that with in text, stuff like that.
Yep.
Key says you can update UPCs via a merge. You have to have multiple UPCs for one ASIN, just like you can create multiple ASINs with one UPC. So Keith, I've experienced that, but it doesn't make the process is not replicatable. The same process routinely is not replicatable at this time. Have to change the product ID to the ASIN with the requested changes to match Amazon's catalog data. Yes, Becca, I think you win the award for most nightmare catalog problems today. By and large, yes, absolutely. Key says potential duplicate process. Yes, so we've seen in seller support, to Keith's credit, there is a task or a button you can click, but they almost always auto reject them. and then you have to supply a cell phone picture of the item or a website link, and then they still reject it, and then you have to call them and try and get it to go through. So that's kind of what we've experienced. All right, so we cleared the queue here. Lesley, I just want to give you a couple minutes on the back end. Where do you see Amazon going in the future, in your opinion? Making catalog jobs easier?
So, you know what's fascinating is that over time, Amazon has tried to do things to make life easier for sellers. So, I'll give you an example. They created what we call radio button appeals for some ASINs and even some accounts, where you could, choose from their options and fill out the little boxes, and magic, it's an appeal, and it was supposed to make everything better. And then they took them away. And then they come back for a while, and then they took them away. And so, every time that happened, like back when I first started doing this, I was like, oh my goodness, it'll be so easy for sellers. No one will need me anymore.
Yeah.
And then, and back when I started writing appeals, there were probably 5 common suspensions and appeal types. And now there are more than 20. So it's just going to get more complex over time, especially with more congressional and agency scrutiny on Amazon. They have more problems they have to address. All that pesticide stuff, that was the stuff rolling downhill from the EPA. You got the EPA, you mentioned earlier, problems that are because of the FDA. You got the FTC, all the alphabet soup, man. Then you've got the state of California. You got the state of Washington, all the attorney general's offices, the price fixing stuff. All of that, it's not going to stop. It is still going to be challenging. So really, it behooves sellers to have someone on speed dial that they can call and get help, because it just isn't going to get easier.
I don't think so either. Well, Lesley Hensell, who is the leader of Riverbend Consulting, one of the premier catalog experts. An expert can see another expert from a mile away. And I've just got to say, Lesley, every time I see you talking about catalog stuff, I am drinking your Kool-Aid.
Well, this is so fun because I got to talk to someone who actually understood everything I said and then also expanded on the things that I said with even more information. This is something else. We got to do it again.
We're definitely going to do it again. It's, the topics can be boring, but the understanding and explanation, it's all about Amazon education. So I appreciate you coming on to the podcast and joining me and at least rallying behind the cries that we hear from Amazon sellers. It's not me against you, Riverbend Consulting. It's all of us against the Amazon. So thanks again for coming on the podcast, Lesley. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. This was a blast.